The stars had been at peace for 6,000 years. 12 great civilizations had joined together under one flag, calling themselves the Accord. They traded with each other. They shared knowledge. They believed that war was something only primitive species did. Commander stood on the bridge of her warship and watched her world burn below. She was tall and slender with pale blue skin and eyes that could see in the dark. Her people were proud. They had built empires that spanned 100 star systems. They had believed themselves untouchable. They had shown them how wrong they were. The enemy ships filled the sky like a swarm of angry insects, and that was exactly what they were. They were bugs, giant, intelligent, hungry bugs that spread across the galaxy like a disease. They did not want peace. They did not want trade. They wanted only to feed and to breed and to consume everything in their path. His fleet had been 500 ships strong when the battle began. Now she had 37 left. The rest were nothing but debris floating in the void. "Commander," her communications officer called out. His voice was shaking. "I am receiving a signal. It is strange." Strange how? Did not turn from the viewport. She was watching a carrier move into position above the capital city. In minutes, it would begin dropping soldiers, millions of them. The signal is using old compression codes, very old. I have not seen anything like this in the archives. The officer paused. "Commander, the language is Terran." Finally turned. She stared at him like he had grown a second head. "That is not possible." Terran was the language of humans, and humans were a myth, a story that parents told their children to make them behave. Long ago, the old records said, there had been a species on a small blue world in the outer spiral arm. They were soft and weak and lived very short lives, but they were also stubborn and violent and impossible to kill. The records said they had fought each other constantly, poisoned their own planet, and finally destroyed themselves in a great war. That was the story anyway. No one had seen a human in 4,000 years. Most people believed they had never existed at all. "Play the signal," said. The bridge went quiet. Then a voice came through the speakers. It was rough and deep and spoke in words that the translation system struggled to understand. "This is Captain Daniel of the Earth vessel Constellation. We received your distress beacon 3 days ago. We are entering your system now. Hold your position. Help is coming." Felt her heart stop, both of them. "Earth vessel," one of her officers whispered. "Commander, Earth is a legend." Apparently not. Turned to her tactical display. At the edge of the system she could see new contacts appearing. Ships. Human ships. They were small and ugly and looked like they had been built from scraps. There were maybe 50 of them. 50 ships against 3,000. "They are insane," said. "They will be destroyed in minutes." But she opened a channel anyway. "Human vessel, this is Commander of the Defense Fleet. Your assistance is unexpected, but I must warn you. The enemy numbers in the thousands. You cannot win this fight." There was a pause. Then the human voice returned. "Commander, we didn't come here to win. We came here to help. Just tell us where you need us." Did not know what to say. She had sent distress calls to every member of the Accord. They had said they could not spare ships. They had offered prayers. The others had not responded at all. And now these creatures from a dead world, these myths made flesh, were flying into certain death simply because someone had asked for help. "The carrier above the capital," she finally said. "If it deploys its troops, the city will fall. My ships cannot break through the escort fleet." "Understood." Constellation out. Watched the human ships change course. They moved in a strange pattern, not like any military formation she had ever seen. They seemed almost random, chaotic, but there was something else, something she could not quite name. They saw them coming. A portion of the swarm broke off to intercept. 200 ships against 50. It should have been over in seconds. It was not. The human ships did not fight like civilized beings. They did not form lines or take turns or follow any rules at all. They dove straight into the swarm and started firing in every direction. When one of their ships was damaged, it did not retreat. It accelerated toward the nearest enemy and exploded. They are using their own ships as weapons, breathed. They are ramming them. They did not know how to respond. Their tactics were based on logic, on mathematics, on predictable behavior. The humans were not predictable. They were wild and reckless and completely insane. In 15 minutes, the human fleet had lost 20 ships, but they had lost 80, and the carrier above the capital was burning. "Commander," the communications officer was staring at his display with wide eyes. "The carrier is going down. The humans, they did it." Watched the massive ship fall from the sky. It crashed into the ocean far from the city, sending up a wave that could be seen from orbit. The channel crackled. "Commander, this is Captain. Carrier is down. What's next?" She looked at the tactical display. They were pulling back, regrouping. They had never faced an enemy like this before. For the first time in 3 years of war, they seemed uncertain. "Captain," said slowly, "I think I need to meet you in person." "Happy to, Commander, but let's finish the fight first." The human ships were already moving again, chasing the retreating with a hunger that makes blood run cold. These creatures were not what the old stories described. They were not primitive. They were not weak. They were something else entirely. And they had just changed the war. Sat down in her command chair and tried to understand what she had just witnessed. The myths were real. The humans had returned, and they fought like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to feel something she had almost forgotten. Hope. The meeting took place aboard the Coalition flagship, a massive vessel called the Eternal Light. It was beautiful and elegant, built with curves and flowing lines that made it look more like a work of art than a warship. The humans arrived in a shuttle that looked like a metal box with engines strapped to it. Commander stood with Admiral of the and 3 other high-ranking officers. They watched as the shuttle landed in the docking bay with a loud clunk that made everyone wince. The door opened with a hiss of escaping air, and then the humans stepped out. Captain Daniel was shorter than had expected. He had brown skin and dark hair cut very short. His face was rough and tired, with lines around his eyes that spoke of many years and little sleep. He walked like someone who had been in pain for a long time but had learned to ignore it. Behind him came 2 others. A woman with black hair pulled back tight, her eyes sharp and watchful. Her name was, and she was his second in command. The other was a man called Briggs. He was bigger than the captain, with pale skin and a scar that ran from his forehead to his chin. He looked like someone who had been in many fights and won most of them. "Admiral," said, extending his hand, "thank you for receiving us." Looked at the hand with confusion. He did not know this gesture, but had studied the old records. "It is a greeting," she said quietly. "You are meant to grasp it." Reached out and took the human's hand, shook it firmly, then released. "I apologize," said. "We do not know your customs. Your kind has been absent for a very long time." Smiled, but there was sadness in it. "Yeah, we had some things to work out." They moved to a meeting room with a large table and a holographic display showing the current state of the war. It was not good. They had taken 47 systems. Billions of people were dead or enslaved. The coalition was losing ground every day. "Why did you come?" asked. He was shorter than the humans but much wider, with thick skin and 4 arms. His people were known for being direct. "Your world is far from here. This war does not threaten you." It was the woman who answered. "We picked up your emergency broadcast 6 months ago. We've been watching since then." "Watching?" Felt a flash of anger. "You watched while worlds burned." "We had to be sure." Did not look away from his eyes. "The last time humans got involved in galactic affairs, it did not end well. We promised ourselves we would not make the same mistakes." "What changed your mind?" asked. Captain reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. He placed it on the table and pressed a button. A recording began to play. It was a voice, high and frightened, a child's voice speaking in. "Please, someone please help us. They are coming. They are breaking through the doors. Mama told me to hide, but I can hear them. Please, is anyone there? Please help me." The recording ended. The room was silent. "That changed our mind," said. "We heard that 3 weeks ago. We left Earth the next day." Felt something tighten in her chest. She knew that colony. It had fallen 2 weeks ago. There were no survivors. "The child," she said, "did you?" "We arrived too late." His voice was flat. "But we found the who did it. They won't be hurting anyone else." Admiral leaned forward. "You came to fight then, to join our war. What do you want in return?" The three humans looked at each other. Then Briggs spoke for the first time. His voice was deep and rough like stones grinding together. "We don't want anything. We're here to help, that's it." Blinked all four of his eyes. "That is not how alliances work." "We're not asking for an alliance," said. "We're offering assistance. No conditions, no treaties, just help." The coalition officers exchanged looks. This was not normal. Every species they had ever met wanted something. Power, resources, territory. The idea that anyone would fight and die for nothing was strange, almost frightening. "Very well," said slowly. "What do you need from us?" "Information," pulled up a display of fleet movements. "Everything you know about them, biology, tactics, weaknesses, how they think, how they communicate, how they breed. You wish to understand them." "We wish to beat them." Smile was thin and cold. "Understanding comes first." The coalition provided everything they had. Thousands of years of research, battle reports, biological studies. The humans absorbed it all with a focus that seemed almost unnatural. They asked questions that no one had thought to ask. They found patterns that no one had seen. After 6 hours, Captain stood up and stretched. "I think we have enough to start." "Start what?" asked. "Hunting." Briggs cracked his knuckles. "They think they're predators. They're about to learn different." "You cannot defeat them with 50 ships," said. "Even with our help. They outnumber us 100 to 1. Nodded. "You're right. A straight fight we'd lose, so we're not going to fight straight." "I do not understand." The captain looked at the holographic display of territory. Thousands of ships, millions of soldiers, an empire built on death and hunger. "Admiral, my people have a saying, if you can't win the game, change the rules." He turned to face the coalition officers. They have been fighting civilized enemies, enemies who follow rules, who value honor and fair combat. And humans do not. Smile was not friendly. Humans invented fair combat. We also invented every way to cheat at it. They want a war, fine, we'll give them a war, but it won't be the kind they're expecting. He gathered his officers and headed for the door. At the threshold, he stopped and looked back. "Get your people ready, Admiral. Things are about to get ugly." The humans left. The coalition officers sat in silence for a long moment. "I am not certain," Admiral said slowly, "whether we have found allies or unleashed something terrible." Watched the human shuttle depart through the viewport. Those small, fragile creatures with their short lives and their strange ways. They had traveled across the galaxy because they heard a child crying for help. "Perhaps both," she said. "Perhaps that is what we needed." The first real test came at the Meridian Nebula. A harvester fleet had gathered there, preparing to attack a group of refugee ships carrying 2 million civilians. The coalition had sent a message begging for help. The humans had answered. Commander was allowed to observe from a safe distance. What she witnessed that day would give her nightmares for years to come. But they were good nightmares. The kind that reminded her that monsters could be beaten. The human fleet numbered 42 ships now, after their losses in the first battle. They had gathered 500. By any reasonable measure, it should have been a slaughter. It was, just not the way anyone expected. The humans did not approach the enemy directly. Instead, they spent 2 days seeding the asteroid field around the nebula with small objects. Sensors could barely detect them. They did not detect them at all. Then Captain sent a single ship forward, a small transport, barely armed. It broadcast a distress signal and limped toward the fleet like a wounded animal. They took the bait. 100 ships broke formation to chase the easy prey. They flew straight into the asteroid field. The explosions lit up the nebula like a new star being born. The small objects the humans had planted were mines, hundreds of them. They tore through the formation, destroying ship after ship. The transport escaped while the enemy burned. But that was just the beginning. While they were distracted, another human squadron had circled around the nebula. They attacked from behind, targeting the harvester ships that carried food and supplies. Without these ships, the soldiers would starve within weeks. The enemy commander tried to protect the harvesters, but the humans were too fast. Their small fighters, piloted by a woman named Kelly Marsh, dove between the larger ships and struck with impossible precision. They targeted engines, weapons, communication systems. They did not try to destroy the enemy. They tried to cripple them. They are not fighting to win battles, realized. They are fighting to win the war. The fleet broke apart. Some ships tried to chase the humans. Others tried to protect the harvesters. None of them succeeded. The humans seemed to be everywhere at once, striking and vanishing like ghosts. When it was over, they had lost 200 ships. The humans had lost 3. Requested permission to board the Constellation and speak with Captain. She found him in a room filled with maps and data screens, surrounded by his officers. They looked exhausted but satisfied. "How?" she asked. "How did you do that?" Offered her a seat. "Coffee." "I do not know what that is." "Hot drink keeps you awake." He poured himself a cup from a metal container. "As for how we did it, the answer is simple. We cheated." Cheated. They fight like insects because that's what they are. They follow rules built into their biology, swarm the enemy, overwhelm with numbers, consume everything. Took a sip of his drink. Humans don't have rules like that. We make our own, and we break them whenever we want. Briggs was cleaning a weapon in the corner. It was a small handheld device that did not recognize. "The bugs expect their enemies to fight fair," he said. "Line up your ships, shoot at each other until someone dies. That's not how we do things." "Then how do you do things?" Briggs looked up and smiled. It was not a nice smile. "We find out what our enemy needs to survive, then we take it away." Over the next 3 months, learned exactly what that meant. The humans did not try to hold territory. They did not try to protect every system. Instead, they identified the weak points in the empire and attacked them relentlessly. A human engineer named Tors had created a chemical weapon that disrupted communication. When sprayed into a hive ship, it drove the insects mad. They turned on each other, killing their own soldiers by the thousands. A doctor named Christina Vance studied biology and found a weakness in their breeding cycle. The humans began targeting nursery ships, destroying the next generation before it could be born. And on the ground, things were even worse for A sergeant named Cole led a small unit on an occupied world. 200 humans against 20,000. By any logic, they should have been wiped out in days. Instead, they became legends. Cole's soldiers did not fight in the open. They hid in ruins and forests and underground tunnels. They attacked at night when they were dormant. They sabotaged supply lines, poisoned water sources, and killed commanders in their sleep. They could not find them. Every time they sent soldiers to search, those soldiers disappeared. Every base they built was burned. Every victory they claimed was stolen back. Traveled to that world after it was liberated. She found Sergeant Cole sitting on a pile of corpses, eating something from a metal container. "How did you survive?" asked. "How did 200 soldiers defeat 20,000? Cole looked up. She was young, maybe 30 Earth years, but her eyes were old. We didn't defeat them. We made them afraid. There's a difference. Afraid, they do not feel fear. They do now. Cole stood up and stretched. See, Commander, they think they're the scariest thing in the galaxy. They've never met anything that hunted them back. We changed that. You hunted them. Every day, every night, we never stopped. We never rested. We made them understand that no matter how many of them there were, we would never quit. Cole smiled, and it was a terrible thing to see. Humans are stubborn like that. We don't know when to give up. Looked at the battlefield around them. Thousands of bodies, destroyed vehicles, burned buildings, and in the middle of it all, 200 humans who refused to die. Your species, she said slowly, is very frightening. Yeah, Cole picked up her weapon and started walking toward the extraction point. We know, that's kind of the point. Followed her, thinking about everything she had seen. The humans were not just warriors. They were something else. Something that the galaxy had forgotten existed. Predators, true predators, the kind that never stopped hunting. And now they were hunting. The tide of war began to turn. Slowly at first, then faster. Worlds that had been lost were taken back. Fleets that had been scattered reformed. The coalition, which had been dying, started to live again. And it was all because of the humans. More ships arrived from Earth every month. Not many, but enough. Each one brought specialists, engineers, doctors, soldiers. They spread through coalition space like seeds, teaching their strange ways of war. Commander worked with the fleet, showing them tactics they had never imagined. How to hide in asteroid fields. How to use false signals to confuse the enemy. How to sacrifice a small force to destroy a larger one. Dr. Christina Vance set up medical stations on a dozen worlds. She learned to treat species she had never seen before. Her teams saved thousands of lives, working without rest, refusing to let anyone die if there was a chance to save them. Though a gentle species that had not fought in 10,000 years asked the humans to teach them defense. A quiet woman named Susan Park spent 3 months with them. When she left, they could protect their families. They still hated violence, but they loved their children more. They did not understand what was happening. Their strategists built models and ran simulations, but nothing worked. Human behavior did not fit any pattern. They attacked when they should have retreated. They retreated when they should have attacked. They sacrificed themselves for strangers and fought to the death over empty symbols. High Queen of the demanded answers. She was ancient and cruel, a creature of pure hunger who had ruled her empire for 3,000 years. She had conquered 100 species. She had never lost a war. What are these creatures? She asked her advisors. Why can we not defeat them? The advisors had no answer. The humans' logic. They should have been weak. Their bodies were soft. Their lives were short. They needed to breathe and eat and sleep. But somehow none of that mattered. They kept fighting. They never stopped. Then we will destroy their, decided. Without Earth, they will have nothing to fight for. It was a desperate plan. They had a weapon they had kept hidden for, a planet killer. A ship so large and so powerful that it could crack a world in half. They had never needed to use it before. Now they sent it toward Earth with an escort of 500 warships. The humans found out. Of course they did. They had spies everywhere. Captain called a meeting with the coalition commanders. His face was calm, but could see something in his eyes. Something cold and hard and very, very old. They're coming for Earth, he said. They think if they destroy our home, we'll give up. Admiral shifted uncomfortably. Will you? Laughed. It was not a happy sound. Admiral, let me tell you something about humans. 2,000 years ago, we almost destroyed ourselves. We had wars that burned whole continents. We poisoned our own air and water. We came within a hair of extinction. But you survived. We did more than survive. We learned. Pulled up a display of the Sol system. After the last great war, we made a promise. Never again. We spent 2,000 years preparing for the day someone came to finish what we almost started. We built defenses, weapons. We turned our entire system into a fortress. The display showed Earth and its colonies, and around them thousands of installations, defense platforms, weapons satellites, mine fields, an entire system designed for one purpose: war. They think they're attacking a primitive species, said. They're wrong. They're attacking the most paranoid, prepared, and dangerous civilization in the galaxy. The fleet arrived in the Sol system 3 weeks later. They expected resistance. They did not expect what they found. The first wave of escort ships hit a minefield that stretched for 1,000,000 kilometers. Half of them died before they could fire a single shot. The survivors tried to regroup, but human defense platforms opened fire from hidden positions. Weapons that the Coalition had never seen tore through armor like paper. The planet killer pushed forward. It was massive, larger than some moons. Its weapons charged, preparing to destroy the blue world called Earth. It never got the chance. From behind the gas giant called Jupiter, a human battleship emerged. It was the Endurance, the largest vessel humanity had ever built. It had been waiting there for 50 years, just in case someone ever tried to do exactly what they were doing. The battle lasted 17 hours. When it was over, not a single ship remained. The planet killer was a broken wreck, caught in the gravity of Saturn. The escort fleet was nothing but debris. Captain sent a message to the Coalition. Earth is secure. What's our next target? The news spread across the galaxy in hours. They had sent their ultimate weapon against the human, and they had failed completely. The unbeatable empire was not so unbeatable after all. Rebellions began on occupied worlds. Species that had surrendered now found their courage. The Coalition launched offensives that would have been unthinkable a year ago. And the humans kept fighting, kept pushing, kept hunting. Found Captain on the observation deck after a briefing. He was staring at a star map, his face unreadable. "You saved your world," she said. "You must be relieved." Relieved? Shook his head. "No, not yet. They are still out there, still hurting people, still killing children." He turned to look at her. "We're not done until this is over, until everyone is safe." "That could take years." "Then it takes years." He smiled, and for a moment he looked very tired and very human. "We didn't come out here for a quick victory, Commander. We came because it was right, and we'll keep coming until there's no one left who needs help." Stood with him in silence, watching the stars. The war was not over, but for the first time she believed it could be won. Because the humans would not stop. They could not stop. It was simply not in their nature. And they were about to learn that lesson the hard way. The end came not with a great battle, but with a quiet message. High Queen of the sent a transmission to the Coalition flagship. Her voice, usually so cold and proud, sounded broken. "We wish to discuss terms of surrender." The galaxy had never heard those words from the before. For 3,000 years they had only conquered. They had never lost. Now their fleets were shattered. Their breeding worlds were blockaded. Their soldiers were starving. The humans had not just beaten them. They had destroyed everything that made them strong. The Coalition commanders gathered to discuss how to respond. Some wanted revenge. They had killed billions. They had burned worlds and enslaved entire species. Justice demanded punishment. But the humans had a different idea. Ambassador Park was an older man with gray hair and gentle eyes. He had spent his whole life studying conflict and peace. He had seen the worst that sentient beings could do to each other. He had also seen the best. "We should accept the surrender," he told the Coalition Council, "and we should offer mercy." Admiral slammed his fist on the table. "Mercy? After what they have done? They killed my son. They killed millions of sons and daughters. They deserve extinction." Park nodded slowly. "I understand. Believe me, I do. My own daughter died on 7. He paused, and everyone could see the pain in his eyes. But killing the won't bring her back. It won't bring anyone back. It will only create more death. Then what would you have us do? Commander asked. Forgive them, pretend nothing happened. No, we make them face what they did. We hold them accountable. We demand reparations and disarmament and justice for the guilty. Park stood and walked to the viewport. But we also give them a chance to become something better. Why? Demanded. Why would we give monsters a chance? Park turned to face the council. Because 2,000 years ago we were the monsters. Humans burned our own world. We killed each other by the millions. We came so close to destroying everything. He spread his hands. And someone, somewhere along the line, gave us a chance we did not deserve. We are still trying to be worthy of it. The council debated for 3 days. In the end, they agreed to the human proposal, not because they wanted to, but because they trusted the strange, stubborn creatures who had saved them all. The peace conference was held on a human colony called New Geneva. It was a beautiful world, green and blue, with mountains that touched the clouds. Representatives from every coalition species attended, and so did the Queen came in person. She was smaller than had expected, a creature of chitin and claws and cold black eyes. She looked at the assembled representatives with something that might have been fear. You could destroy us, she said to Ambassador Park. Your ships surround our worlds. Your weapons could end our species in days. Why do you not simply finish what you started? Park considered the question for a long moment. Because we have been where you are. We have been the ones who could not stop taking, could not stop fighting, could not imagine any other way to live. And we learned eventually that there had to be another way, or we would die. You showed yourselves mercy. Someone showed us mercy first. We are trying to pay it forward. The treaty was signed that afternoon. They agreed to disarm. They agreed to pay reparations to every world they had harmed. They agreed to hand over their war criminals for trial. In return, they were given territory to live in, resources to rebuild, a chance at a future. Not everyone was happy. Some said they deserved worse. Some said the humans were fools, but the killing stopped, and slowly, painfully, the galaxy began to heal. Found Captain at the celebration that evening. He was standing alone on a balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and red. The old rumors did not do your species justice, she said. They said humans were dangerous. They did not say you were kind. Smiled, but it was a tired smile. We're both, Commander, that's the truth of us. We can be the most terrible thing you've ever seen. We can also be the most gentle. It depends on what's needed. And how do you choose? We try to choose kindness first. He looked at her. It doesn't always work. Sometimes we fail. Sometimes the darkness wins, but we keep trying. That's all we can do. Below them, the celebration continued. Music played, people laughed, and Child was trying to teach a young human a dance. Their movements were clumsy and wrong, but they were both smiling. What will your people do now? Asked. The war is over. Will you return to your isolation? Shook his head. No, we tried hiding for 2,000 years. It didn't feel right. He gestured at the scene below. This feels right, being part of something, helping where we can, making friends instead of enemies. You could have conquered the galaxy. After what you did to no one could have stopped you. Probably not, turned to face her fully. But what would be the point? More power, more territory. We had all that once. It nearly killed us. He shrugged. These days we try to want different things. Community, connection, a universe where children don't have to be afraid. Thought about the child's voice from that recording. The one that had brought the humans out of hiding. Please help me. You came because of one child, she said. One voice crying out in the dark. Yeah, his expression softened. That's really all it takes. One voice. One person who needs help. That's enough to make us cross a galaxy. They stood together in silence, watching the stars come out one by one. The war was over. A new age was beginning. And at the center of it all were these strange, terrible, wonderful creatures called humans. They had been rumors, myths, stories to frighten children. Now they were neighbors, allies, friends. And the galaxy would never be the same. Below the balcony, the child finally taught the human the dance. They spun together under the alien stars, laughing at their own mistakes. Watched them with something soft in his eyes. "That's what we fight for," he said quietly. "Right there, that's the whole point." Nodded, she understood now. The humans were not just warriors. They were protectors, guardians of something precious and fragile. Hope. They had carried it across the galaxy, and now they were sharing it with everyone. The universe, she realized, was finally in good hands.